Welcome to Story Comic Presents, where we interview amazing storytellers and artists. This is episode 436. I'm your host, Barney Smith of StoryComic.com. We're excited to have with us the internationally acclaimed and inspirational children's book author, Anna Marti. Anna.
Hi everyone. Nice to meet you.
How are you doing?
Doing well.
Excellent.
It's nice and warm today, so can't complain.
So Anna, you recently published a children's book called Henrietta Harmonica Finds Her Song.
Yes, that's correct. I believe it was January of 2024. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And so what inspired you to write Henrietta Harmonica Finds Her Song?
So my dad was a worship pastor growing up, and so music was always a very important part of our family. And when he was, well, I guess it was in 2021, he passed away from cancer, and he always would read books to us, and he would take time out of his job to go to like preschools and elementary schools, and he would read books to kids there, trying to instill excuse me, the love of reading in kids. And so once he passed away, I always knew that I wanted to write a book in his honor. So that's kind of where the idea for the book came, I guess.
Right. And we're looking at for those, we'll see they have these in the show notes, but if you go to gospelmindedmama.wordpress.com, you'll see a lot of stories. You're very prevalent with your blogging as too, I see. And we're looking at a picture of your dad, and is
Yes.
that you dressed up as a groundhog?
Yes, it is me. I was a groundhog. He would do Groundhog's Day concert where the first half was kind of geared towards kids, and then the second half was more like Southern gospel music. And so I would come up out of the baptistry, which sounds kind of silly, but that was the groundhog's hole. I would come up and then dance around with the kids, and they could get their picture taken with me too. So it was quite an adventure, we'll say that. So, yeah.
Now, talking about Henrietta Harmonica, Henrietta is such a unique and heartfelt character. How did she come to life for you?
So growing up, my dad also played the harmonica. So harmonica was, that kind of gave me an idea for the instrument that I wanted to do for the book. And then I just remember my mom saying, I think it was Henrietta Pumpernickel or something like that growing up, which just, I don't even remember where it came from, but I remember that and thinking about how having, in children's books, the double H, that's kind of where I got the Henrietta Harmonica from to do. Yeah.
All right. Basically, as you mentioned too, your father was kind of an inspiration for you on this one. And so how did your personal grief journey kind of shape the narrative of the book?
Yeah. The story of Henrietta is very similar to my own personal story after my dad passed away. Because music was such an important thing, I also was involved with worship team at our church, and I just couldn't sing songs because I would hear his voice singing the song, and it was just like I would try to sing and no words would come out. It was just very difficult, and so it was like writing the story was kind of healing for me, going through the grief. And I had the idea for the book, I think it was January of 2023, and it just came to me, the whole story, in like 30 minutes, which is like, seems pretty ridiculous that it would all come together that quickly, but I think it was because of living out the grief and dealing with, having my dad die when he was so young and going through that. It was kind of, God was preparing me through the grief to be able to help other kids when they have to deal with a grandparent or a family member passing away.
So, because this is a children's book and you're dealing with pretty strong emotional themes, what would you say is the most difficult part of writing about grief in a way that children could understand?
Um, I think I really wanted to have the time where Henrietta, there's a part in the book where she prays to God. And just with having kids of my own and remembering back to when I was a kid, it's like, how do you talk to God? How do you talk to this person that you can't see? Um, was just a hard thing. And so I wanted to make it where it doesn't, it comes across as it doesn't matter what words you say. It's more of just having a conversation with a friend, which, yeah, I wanted to make it important that the kids understood they could say whatever they needed to and express their feelings how they could.
Hmm.
Um, so that's probably one of the one of the harder, I don't know, feelings, but aspect of the book.
Right. And did you always know that the story would involve music, or did that element come later?
I kind of had an idea that I wanted to do it something with music. Um,
Mm.
some of it was because I tried drawing different characters, and the harmonica was one that I could actually draw. Um, because I mean, I can draw things and kind of am an artist, but with having 4 kids, I knew that I wouldn't be able to illustrate the book as quickly as I wanted to get it out. So um, I drew the harmonica and then I sent it to my illustrator, and she like made it come to life very quickly. And so then I knew, yes, I want her as my illustrator, and it will save me a lot of time.
I love this part about the book is like there's a QR code in the back of the book for a special song. Uh, can you share the story behind that?
Yeah. And actually, writing that page that has the QR code on it was the hardest page for me to write
Mm.
because it kind of was my dedication story thing to my dad. Um, but so my fourth son was born almost a year to the date after my dad passed away. And he was very colicky and couldn't calm down. And it was just, we weren't getting much sleep and we couldn't figure out what to do. And so one night I thought, well, why don't I try and play my dad's music? Because back in, let's see, I think around 2007 maybe, my dad, my mom, and I had the opportunity to record a CD down in Nashville. And so I still have that. So we played a song. It's called God Wants to Hear You Sing. And it basically talks about how no matter what life brings at you, God still wants to hear you sing. And so I had to listen to that song over and over because it was the only thing that would calm him down. And
Mm.
it was before I was ready to listen to it that much. But I would listen to it, and then it wasn't enough just for him to hear the song. Then he would start crying, and he wanted to. Of course, I'm not inside my like 3-month-old's brain, but he wouldn't calm down. So then I started to hum along with it, and that seemed to calm him down. And then I later on ended up having to harmonize with my dad, singing out loud. And it was like God gave me this opportunity to sing with my dad again, even though he wasn't here anymore. So, yeah, so it was very hard to go through that, but also a blessing to be able to see that even though my son didn't get to meet my dad's voice still calmed him down.
What's been the most surprising response you've received from a reader?
I had the opportunity to probably a couple months ago share about my book in Mexico. Um, and so I had the opportunity, I was speaking in English and then I had a translator, But there was a girl in there who had also lost her grandpa. And then once she, once I was done reading through the book, she said that it really meant a lot to her and that she wanted to become an author. So
Mm.
that was really neat to see that it not only impacted her, but it could potentially impact her future as well.
Mm. Well, hey there. If you're enjoying our podcast, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. Your support means the world to us and helps us keep this show going. We love hearing from you, so any feedback is welcome. And thank you for being a part of our podcast family and for all your support. It truly means a lot to us. So, why do you believe it's important to talk to kids about grief through storytelling?
I would say that when my dad and my grandpa passed away, we didn't have, or I had a hard time finding books that would really talk about it in an easy way for kids. And so stories are a lot of how kids learn things, and especially feelings. I think feelings are very hard for anybody to deal with, but for kids especially because they don't have the life experience of this feeling will go away in a little bit. It feels like it just sits there for a long time, especially grief. And so I
Mm.
think or telling it through story, you're kind of meeting them at their um, level with something that they enjoy. Kids enjoy stories, and um, it's a way where you can start conversations with them too about harder things, when maybe they can talk about the character in the book about something that they're dealing with. Um, and it can be like a springboard for them to open up and talk about their feelings.
Right.
So, yeah.
I mean, it's like Henrietta's struggle with silence is powerful. Can you talk about what it means for children to lose their quote unquote song during grief?
Yeah, I think at least I noticed in my kids where it doesn't come out the same way as it does in adults. They may have a lot of headaches, or their stomach might hurt, or they may just not feel like playing very much, and kind of like losing their song, kind of like losing a bounce in their step, losing their carefree being a kid, um, starting to worry about what's going to happen to my parents, what's going to happen to other grandparents, is somebody else going to die in my life? So they just start to, in some cases, grow up quicker when somebody close to them dies. Um, and I think that happens to adults too. When we lose somebody close, then we start to question who else is going to get hurt in our life or something like that.
Hmm. So I get. So was writing this story also a form of therapy for you as well?
Yeah, it was very much. And when I started my blog back in, I think it was 2017, maybe, it was kind of my way of writing helped me to deal with my feelings and try to share about things that I dealt with in motherhood that maybe other moms feel like they're alone in, and trying to point them back to Christ. And that's kind of where, yeah, it was definitely therapy for me.
Right. Now, so how do you stay creative and spiritually grounded in your busy day-to-day life then? We got, as you mentioned, you have 4 kids. That's a full-time job too.
Yeah, it is. It is sometimes it feels like a full time and a half. But I I definitely don't do it perfectly. Um, but I have been trying to get up early in the morning because that's I do my best thinking, or really being able to process what's going on in my day when there's not chaos going on in the house. And that's either really early in the morning or super late at night once everybody's finally in bed. And so I've been trying to get up earlier in the morning. And I would say the days that I'm able to do that, I'm able to have a better day. I'm able to be more patient with my kids. Um, I still don't have like a creative time built into my day. It's just kind of when I get the opportunity, um, because I have two littles at home with me, so there's always somebody there. Um, but yeah, sometimes on Sunday afternoons, I'll go out and have some creative time for like 2 to 3 hours and take my guitar, play some music, um, dreaming up when I start my own podcast, but that probably will be down the road.
Mm.
So, yeah.
And and so, what advice would you give to an aspiring Christian children's author?
Um, I would say to definitely do your research. Try to figure out which type of publishing is going to be best for you. Um, but then also, don't be afraid to share what you feel like God has laid on your heart, because um, I've had lots of people say that they're so thankful that in my book I pointed kids to Christ, because um, there are a lot of books that don't do that. And if I would have chosen not to do that, I could have spoken more schools. I could have done a lot more in public schools and maybe sold more books. But I would just encourage them to, if you feel that God is leading you to write a book, to go ahead and do it, to start
Mm.
writing it. A lot of us, we have books in our head. We don't get them down on paper. We're afraid people won't like what our books are, and so we don't start the publishing process. And so I would just encourage them to take it one day at a time, start writing, make sure that you have people edit your book. Um, and it's definitely worth it to have a good illustrator. I think that's very
Mm.
important.
Was there a children's book that impacted you when you were growing up?
I I really enjoyed the Berenstain Bear books. I know those are probably dating me, but as I looked back at them, I could see how, the illustrations changed a little bit from the very first ones to the later ones. But I just enjoyed how simple they were and how they talked about feelings and relationships and things like that. And I felt like they were encouraging too. So I really appreciated those books growing up.
So, what does finding your song mean to you now after writing this book?
I would say that finding my song is being able to, well, the literal part of it is being able to sing again
Mm.
in church and in worship music, but then also being able to get back into day to day living. Because when you go through grief, it's different for everybody. You have different stages. There's anger, there's when you're sad, there's having a hard time just getting through the day. But I would say being able to get back into um, trying to make an impact in my kids' lives, trying to search out people that might also be dealing with grief and being able to
Mm.
walk alongside of them and encourage them, um, and be able to being okay with feeling the different feelings of grief, because it can be
Right.
easy to just try to push them deep down and not want to deal with them. I think that can make it worse sometimes.
Anna, if people want to learn more about you and your book, where's the best place they could go to?
If they go to Gospel Minded Mama, I believe it's .wordpress.com. They they can buy both the um, they can buy the paperback and the hardback, and they're all available on Amazon as well. And then I also have a Facebook page, Gospel Minded Mama.
So
So
yeah, yeah, and if you had And you said you're working on a series of these books then too.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have, there's like ideas for 7 of them, but one at a time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, most people that become authors, well, I would guess don't have tons of money, but do it because they enjoy writing. So,
And once you get that bug, once you get that writing bug into you, you got to keep writing.
yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, listen, Anna, you'll have to come back on when you have your next book coming out.
Okay. Yeah, I would enjoy doing that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.